using the Excel VLOOKUP formula to return a letter grade for a number value. So many teachers use Excel for their gradebook features, and they keep grades throughout the semester for different items like quizzes, exams, homework, participation. Most people know that they can just make a simple sum just by clicking in a column, going to the Home ribbon, and choosing the Auto Sum feature. That will add up all of the numbers in the adjacent cells. So for this, it's across the row. If that's what we want, we hit Enter, and there's our total. If I hadn't already done this for you, you would see that we could copy that formula down very quickly by hovering over the square in the lower right-hand corner of the cell with the formula that we want and double-clicking. That launches the autofill feature, and it makes the formula roll down in a relative way, relative referencing the cells. So this is a very generous gradebook, and we even give the students an extra 5 points for random errors that could occur in rounding or mistakes in grading. So what we did here was we clicked in this cell and we made our own little formula. Instead of using the sum function, we hit the equal sign to start a sum. We click the cell with the initial student's value, the student's initial value, and we just type in the plus sign and 5 to give everyone 5 extra points and hit Enter. In that way, we copied that down as well. So this is what we'd like to do is use this little grading scale over here to find out what their original grade would be, and then what their grade is with the 5-point curve to see if it matters. Okay. So what I'm going to do at first is I'm going to take a look at our points and grading. Okay. So we're on a 600-point scale, and there is no A+. To make it a little simpler to reference this information in our formula, I'm going to name this range. Naming a range is so easy to do, and people just don't realize that they can do it. So all I've done is I've clicked on the first cell, slid over to the second cell, and slid down to the bottom of this little grade range. I'm going to come over here to what's called the name box, and I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to call it grade scale. It all has to be one word, and if you wanted a space, you have to use that underscore as I've done, and hit Enter. So now, if we were to click anywhere else on the spreadsheet, we'll see the reference point, but we can always go back to the grade scale. So anytime we refer to the grade scale, it's going to refer to that range of cells. So here we go. Okay. So we're going to calculate our first lookup for this grade. So we're going to start with the equal sign, and we're going to start typing VLOOKUP. And that is such a common formula that it pops up for us. We'll double click on VLOOKUP, and it's looking for this whole string of what to do. I really like opening the function window. I think it's much easier to understand what's going on when we look up the function window. So the VLOOKUP value is, what are we referencing? What do we want to look up? So for us, we want to look up this score, 468 points. Okay. The table array is going to be that grade scale. Grading scale. What did I call it? Yeah, it's very important that you know what you called it. So that's not it. I know that's not it because I got an error. So let's try grade scale. Ah, look, it recognizes grade scale and says, oh, here are the values I could return. The column index number can be very confusing. In your VLOOKUP information, our grade scale, the first column has to be the lookup value, what it's comparing it to, and that would be our 468. Okay? So 468 will fall between 450 and 475. It's very important that you lay out your grade table in this order. Otherwise, the rounding range that true value is going to find will be on the other side of the grade value that you want. So an A is equal to 600 points. We actually had a student that earned 601 points. So it is possible to have more points than in this scale. So the total possible points for the class might have been 625. The column index numbers in that group of columns. Where does that column place that has the values that we want to return? So column 1 is our lookup range, and column 2 is what we want to return. So we have the number 2 there. Right now, 468 would return a value of C. The range lookup is important in some cases, not so much in this one. What this does is if we leave it blank or we put the word true, it's going to look for the closest value. If we put the word false, it's going to look for an exact match. You'll notice when I put false in here, you no longer get a return because 468 isn't one of the values in column 1. It's not an exact match. So we'll put true. You'd want to use false when you're looking up zip codes to return city and state, because there are a number of zip codes that are very close and it's just the last number that might be different. So we'll click OK, and now we see that this student, number 1, would get a C. If I double click on that little square, it copies the formula down and we can see how everyone's doing. So let's just repeat that with a final grade with the extra 5 points. So I'll click the equal sign, V, L to start VLOOKUP. Come to the function and remember our lookup value, 473 in this case. The table array is grade, scale, the column index number is still the value in the second column in that range, and I'll leave it blank this time just to prove to you that it's not important this time. And we'll copy that down. So you can see, let me just make that column a little wider, that in a few cases the grade has gone up. This student went from a B to a B+. This student went from an A- to an A. But overall, 5 points is not going to save a student who's not doing well or failing. So one more thing I'm going to do, just because it's been so much fun spending time with you, is we want to see how the class as a whole is doing. So we're going to do something called the COUNTIF function. So we want to count how many students are getting an A, a B, so A- instead of being 575 to 599, an A would be 576 to 600. So it's very important. If you sort the other way, your ranges are going to round in the other direction. So we're going to make a range for this column of values here. So to play with this count feature, we are going to, I'm going to hide these columns so that we can see more of our workspace. I'm going to highlight these grades, and I'm going to highlight these grades, and I'm going to give it a name. Oh, you can see I already gave it a name. That's what happens when you practice and don't clean up. So I'll call it Final. So now you'll see we have grade, scale, and final. So I'm going to refer to the final range in my COUNTIF formula. So I'll come over to counts, and I'll say equal, and I'll start COUNTIF. COUNTIF, and I'll open this function window again, because it's easier to understand. And our range is final. And the criteria is going to be this cell for the grade. And we'll click OK. And I'll copy this down. So now we can see very quickly that most of the students got a C+ in the course, and so on. So there are two very helpful functions as you're going along to do your grading. I hope you find this video useful, and thanks. Have a good day.